From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. First, the headlines. The CIA is losing informants around the world. Richest Americans became 40% richer during the pandemic. The Taliban start issuing passports in Afghanistan. Jewish and Muslim sailors file a lawsuit to wear beards in the Navy. Dozens of Israeli settlers storm AlAqsa Mosque after Jewish holidays. And a special segment on the study of fatal police violence in the U.S. Our top story tonight. The New York Times reports that the CIA has said a concerning number of informants recruited from other countries to spy for the U.S. have been captured, killed, or compromised. According to a top-secret CIA message, intelligence agencies in China, Iran, Pakistan, and Russia have been hunting down U.S. spies and even turning them into double agents. A record number of informants have been detected easily by foreign countries, aided by constantly developing technology. Meanwhile, the U.S. has fallen behind its adversaries in intelligence gathering, having spent the past 2 decades mostly focused on fighting terrorists. The CIA says it is also troubled by being too trusting of sources, underestimating foreign intelligence agencies, recruiting informants too quickly, and not paying enough attention to potential counterintelligence risks. Former President Donald Trump is facing greater legal scrutiny over his attempt to sway the 2020 election in the battleground state of Georgia. Authorities are making headway in a criminal investigation into Trump's January 2nd call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Trump asked him to just find 11,780 votes to block President Joe Biden's win there. The Georgia District Attorney is now sharing information with the House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riot in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, a Justice Department task force is looking into death threats or warnings of violence made against Georgia election officers and workers. The 400 richest Americans made $4.5 trillion more last year. According to Forbes magazine, that is a 40% rise in their wealth, despite the pandemic stifling large parts of the U.S. economy. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos remains in the top spot with a net worth of $201 billion. In second place is Tesla CEO Elon Musk, followed by Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. They are worth $190.5 billion and $134.5 billion, respectively. 44 newcomers joined the ranks of the uber-rich, the largest increase since 2007. Among them are Melinda Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bitcoin billionaires Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, and Moderna co-founder Noubar Afeyan. The Chicago Muslims Green Team, a nonprofit promoting a sustainable lifestyle based on Islamic teachings, began recruiting members for the Downtown Islamic Center chapter on Friday. The group aims to transform the mosque into a model of eco-friendliness. Group founder Caroline Williams said the first steps are to reduce the center's energy consumption by changing light bulbs and installing switch sensors and solar panels. The Downtown Islamic Center is a pilot of the much more ambitious Green Mosque program that aims to make all Chicago area mosques more sustainable. The center's team will follow the steps suggested by Faith in Place, a nonprofit that provides resources to advocate for more sustainable faith communities. Faith in Place started training the Chicago Muslims Green Team in 2019. Religion News Service reports that 1 Jewish and 3 Muslim sailors are suing the U.S. Navy for its beard policy, which they argue violates their religious freedom. Edmund Delicia is a petty officer aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier. He said other sailors threatened to hold him down and forcibly shave his beard. Delicia said he doesn't want to have to choose between serving his country and remaining true to his religious convictions. Delicia is Jewish. The Muslim sailors who are part of the lawsuit said they were unable to get religious exemptions, although other sailors received medical exemptions allowing them to keep their beards. The lawsuit was filed by the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty. It argues that the Navy is violating the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Under that law, the Pentagon has allowed military personnel to request religious accommodation for uniforms since 2014. The Army and Air Force have previously allowed Jewish, Muslim, and Sikh service members to grow beards. A California jury has ordered automaker Tesla to pay a black former employee $137 million for racist abuse and creating a hostile work environment. Owen Diaz said he suffered daily racist epithets while working at a San Francisco Bay Area Tesla plant between 2015 and 16. This was before he quit as a contracted elevator operator. Diaz said coworkers left swastikas, graffiti, and drawings around the plant, and supervisors did not do anything to stop it. Diaz was awarded $6.9 million in damages for emotional distress and $130 million in punitive damages. Tesla Vice President of People Valerie Capers-Workman said in a statement the company strongly believes the facts did not support the jury's decision. She said janitors cleaned racist graffiti from bathrooms at the plant, and the N-word was used primarily among black workers. In previous court filings, other black employees alleged racial harassment at the same plant, which employs about 10,000 workers. A mayoral candidate for the city of Calgary, Alberta, was sentenced to 18 months in prison for defaming Canadian Muslim businessman and philanthropist Mohammed Faqih. Justice Fred Myers said nearly all the evidence against Kevin Johnston came from his own mouth. Myers called Johnston's words classic hate speech that draws on tropes, such as branding Muslims as terrorists. Johnston labeled Faqih a terrorist and a baby killer. He was ordered in 2019 to pay 2.5 million Canadian dollars for defaming Faqih in a series of comments and videos he posted on his website starting in 2017. Johnston was to begin the sentence 4 days after the October 18th Calgary election. In Calgary, anyone convicted of crimes can still run for mayor. Afghanistan's Taliban government on Tuesday announced it will resume issuing passports and employ female staff to handle women's passport matters. Alam Gul Haqqani, the recently appointed acting head of the passport department, said 25,000 passports were ready to be issued to those who applied before August 15th, when the previous government collapsed. Taliban Interior Ministry Communication Director Saeed Khosti said passports will be issued under the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Israeli Interior Minister Ilat Shaked said Tuesday that a visa exemption deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates goes into effect October 10th. Israel and the UAE reached an agreement on the mutual exemption of visas for their citizens as part of a bid to normalize relations. The UAE was the first Arab country to sign a visa waiver agreement with Israel. In January, the Gulf nation suspended the agreement to stem the spread of coronavirus. An independent commission said yesterday that French Catholic clergy sexually abused 216,000 minors from 1950 to 2020, which was covered up by a veil of silence. The commission's 2.5-year investigation was prompted by outrage over abuse claims and prosecutions against church officials worldwide. Including claims against lay members, such as Catholic school teachers, the number of child abuse victims climbs to 330,000 over 7 decades. Commission Chief Jean-Marc Sauvé said until the early 2000s, the Catholic Church showed a profound and even cruel indifference towards the victims. Archbishop Éric de Moulin-Beaufort, president of the Bishops' Conference of France, which co-requested the report, expressed shame and horror at the findings. Sauvé denounced systemic efforts to shield clergy from sex abuse claims and urged the Church to pay reparations, despite most cases being past the statute of limitations for prosecution. The report found the vast majority of victims were pre-adolescent boys from a variety of social backgrounds. Dozens of Israeli settlers again stormed the AlAqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem's Old City on Tuesday, a move seen as provocative by Palestinians. According to media reports, about 70 settlers entered the mosque compound through the Moroccan gate on the western side. Israeli authorities have controlled that entrance since the beginning of the occupation of East Jerusalem and the West Bank in 1967. Palestinian National Agency Wafa reports that last month, over 6,000 Israeli settlers breached the compound during the Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. Israeli far-right activists have repeatedly pushed for an increased Jewish presence at Al-Aqsa. Some have advocated for its destruction to make way for a third temple, while others want to seize the complex's eastern area to turn it into a Jewish prayer site. In contrast, Palestinian Muslims and Christians do not seek to pray in the Western Wall Plaza, the holiest site in Judaism east of Al-Aqsa. Their access to the site has to go through a strict security check. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September. I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Roll over. When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. And your mother. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. The burden of fatal police violence is an urgent public health crisis in the United States. Mounting evidence shows that deaths at the hands of the police disproportionately impact people of certain races and ethnicities, pointing to systemic racism in policing. To discuss the findings of a recent study, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Samana. More than half of the people who have been killed in police violence are not even recorded as they were killed in the police violence. What is going on here? There is a study out. A group of 90 scholars have worked with each other, and it is published in Lancet, which is the world's oldest and the most renowned medical journal. And with us is the author of the report, Dr. Ali Muqdad. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Ali Muqdad is a professor at the Washington University of Washington. Tell us, what are the major findings? When you started the research, were you thinking that's the type of finding you will have?
No, we were expecting underreporting of police killing, but not to that magnitude. So we monitored all the data that's available and reported by the U.S. government, and we compared it to independent sources. And we found out that 55% of the police killing is not reported. And we found out that African Americans are 3.5 times more likely to be killed by a police compared to white people. And we have found out that police killing has increased from 1980 to 2018, with a sharp increase since early 2000.
What was the reasons behind the sharp increase?
There is a lot of things going on in our country right now in terms of division and in terms of political standing. And that's why we are seeing it, unfortunately, manifested in our streets sometimes.
So what was the reasoning when the people who are killed in police violence are not reported as such? What were the reasoning? I mean, is it something that police wanted to hide?
No, it's part of it is, yes, there is some hiding, but in general, it's the way the system works. So on the death certificate, there is a field that it should say legal intervention. There is a code for it. And that's not being used because when there is somebody who's been killed in the United States, a medical examiner has to fill the death certificate and has to explain what has happened. And as you know, in many counties in the United States, there is no qualified medical examiner. So it's being filled by somebody who didn't know what happened. And it's being reported as killing and not a killing by police. So we can do better, and we need to reform the way we count police killing and then adequately record it in the death certificate so we could get the truth every time.
So people are saying discrimination is systemic. So you found even the death, the system is systematically failing the people of color.
Of course, there is systematic racism here in this country. We know that it's everywhere, and of course, within the police. And of course, police has to be accountable for what they are doing, and they need to take responsibility across the United States in what they are doing. And we need to keep in mind that police in the United States is so militarized. I mean, a lot of weapons, and they are trained that any event, any encounter with somebody could turn violent. So they're very quick in responding. And that's not the right way of policing in the United States. And I'll go a little bit further. When you have somebody who has a mental condition or on drugs or a dispute within a household, we don't need a policeman to come and intervene. If it is somebody who's peaceful, not carrying a weapon, you don't need a policeman with heavy weapon, vest, etc., to come and intervene. They're not trained to do so. They're not trained. They're trained to protect us, and we need that. But they're not trained to deal with certain situations in the United States, and we ask them to intervene.
You pointed to 2008, specifically, if I heard you right, when it spikes in a bigger way. What took place in 2008, which makes it so worse than the earlier time?
No, it started to go up in 2002, early 2000. And that's what's happening in the United States. We had a lot of problems in 2000, political, most of them were political, but also racism became a major issue in the United States. And we're seeing a lot of racism right now, unfortunately. And it was even much higher during the previous administration. And that has caused a lot of problems in the United States, not only when it comes to police killing, which is outrageous, but also racism is impacting health in the United States and leaving people behind. And we need in the United States to take care of everybody and not leave anybody behind. If you look at the United States right now and look at life expectancy, for example, we have places in the United States where life expectancy is as low as what we see in Africa, in Western Africa. That's not acceptable. And racism plays, unfortunately, a major role in that.
What will be the percentage of that life expectancy, which you are saying in some areas in the United States?
So you have in the United States, on average, we have increased about half a year of life expectancy every year until, of course, COVID-19 life expectancy is declining. And in COVID-19, we know that mortality was much higher among Native Americans, Hispanic, and African Americans, because quite honestly, in the United States, we failed to protect our essential workers who kept our country running. If you look at life expectancy in general in the globally, the highest life expectancy is among females in Japan, about 86.9 years. So expected from birth till die. In the United States, we have places, if you look at places, for example, in Colorado, where people live way above a Japanese woman. And we have places in West Virginia and Alabama where people live about 72 years. And there is a huge gap in life expectancy in the United States. And that gap is not closing, it's widening. And even within a state, you see a gap sometimes between one county and another county, and between races within a state, that gap is 10 to 15 years. And that's unacceptable in a country like ours, where we have all the resources. We spend on health, for example, more than the whole world combined. We spend about half of what the whole world spent on health. And our outcomes, when you look at life expectancy in the United States, at the national level, we rank 42 globally. So we're not getting the return on our investment, and we're not investing in the right things. And I can explain, if you want, why life expectancy in the United States is falling behind and why we are facing these issues.
I would love to hear that. But before we go there, tell me, is the poverty a stronger variable in the life expectancy issue, or the race is the primary variable?
No, there are many variables included. So one of it is socioeconomic factors, so which includes race, income, and education, of course, which plays a major factor. But if you look at comparing us to other countries in the world, they have less money than we do. We're much more rich than they are, and still they do much better than us in terms of life expectancy. So poverty or socioeconomic should not be used as an excuse for us in the United States. It should be used as a motivation for us to address these issues at the community level and invest in the right things in the United States, in education and hospitalization, in transport and health and affordable housing, these issues that this country can afford to spend on. And of course, will improve health, will improve education level, will improve our economy if we invest in our working force, in their health and their education.
You mentioned 2000 being a time when it started worsening. Now, if I can think of a major event close to that date, that is 2001, September 11 issues. How much the war on terror influenced militarization of police on our streets in America?
You know, the war on terror, we're not questioning that. It's justified. And yes, we need military and police to be adequately prepared to deal with it and, of course, protect us and save us. But at the same time, it should not be used as an excuse to go after minorities and allow the police to be unaccountable and cause more killing in these communities. Yes, it may be a factor. We didn't look at it specifically in our analysis, but you're right. After 9/11, there was an increase in weapons sale in the United States, as well as an increase in militarization of the police.
Okay, so it correlates with the weapons sale as well, along with the militarization then.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question.
So you're saying that weapons sale also played a role in this?
Of course, every time, not in the police killing, that's not an excuse for the police killing, but every time we had an event, even after the COVID pandemic in the United States, we see a rush of people buying guns in the United States. And unfortunately, when people buy guns, there's more likely to have accidents at home, and we see a rise in suicide. We see a rise in accidents. So this is an issue that also we need to control. When you talk about police violence in the United States, there is also the same, you need at the same level to talk about easy access for guns in the United States. And we are a country that everybody can get a gun, unfortunately, and we don't have regulation for safety of guns. Other countries allow their citizens to have a gun, but they have strict regulation of screening who can get a gun, 1, 2, and how you store safely your gun at home in order to make sure there are no accidents at home.
You're mentioning that classification was an issue. So half of the people who died because of police violence are not classified as such. But do you see the classification problem as prominent when whites are dying?
it's true for everything. It's much lower for white, but it's true for white as well. So there are white who've been killed, who have been misclassified. So for example, when you look at African Americans, about 60% of deaths were not classified as killing by the police, whereas when it comes at white, it's about 55%, 56%. So it's a little bit lower, but yes, the misclassification happened for all ethnic groups. But of course, the main finding here is 3.8 times more likely for an African American to be killed by a policeman.
Do you think reporting of COVID also is influenced by the same systemic problems in reporting?
Not to this extent, not to that level of 55%. Yes, there's misclassification of COVID, and that's why at IHME, where I work, we look at total COVID and excess deaths due to COVID. And of course, there's underreporting of COVID deaths, and it varies by reason and by state. And to give you an example, right now, some of the deaths that occurred due to COVID-19 are because people delayed medical care. And then you need to take that into account. Some of the deaths that are due to COVID-19 are from suicide, mental health, depression that led to suicide, drug use, alcohol use because of the economical conditions. So yes, there is underreporting of COVID-19 deaths. It varies by state, and the underreporting for policemen, police killing also varies by state, with states like West Virginia, Alaska have the highest underreporting of police killing.
So are there some recommendations which you have for a systemic solution for underreporting, which you have presented through this report?
Definitely. And we put exactly how this could be fixed, how to have qualified people assign the causes of death, but at the same time, having an independent people who are keeping a tab and making sure everything is done correctly is also needed until we have a good system in place. And also in our publication, we had also recommendation, what should we do in order to reduce police killing in our community in terms of training of the policemen and holding policemen accountable for their action, but also through training and also to, in many situations, have cameras. So this has been recorded. Remember, you and I know right now about police killing more than ever before because everybody has a camera. This wasn't true before. So if policemen have a camera in their car and of course on their body, we can find out what's happening. And that's one way of holding them accountable and make sure this camera is working and it's always recording what's happening.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Muqdad.
My pleasure.
For your time. And, thank you for the continued extraordinary reporting on issues of health and COVID. And now I didn't realize that you will report on the statistics of police violence. Half of those are never reported. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Back to you, Samana.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.